too loud, right?
Yes.
Hey!
I can't hear it yet. Gotta wait for the live streaming. Let's see.
$500 trillion at Bank of America. Barclays Bank is $50 trillion. Citibank is $500 trillion. Hong Kong Shanghai Bank doesn't give an account. It doesn't give an amount. But I go after Barclays. That's interesting. Citibank and Barclays. Hey, I got an account at Citibank. Just have it all put in my account at Citibank.
You're online. You're on live. Okay. I'm just testing.
Am I on live right now? Have we started yet?
No, not yet.
It's live. But I'm just testing. So we're gonna.
Well, if it's live, that means people are listening to me right now?
No, it's nobody else right now. It's just me. Okay, what is it?
Well, that's certainly important. Central Bank of the United Emerald Emirates.
Arabs.
Can't you just seize one of those accounts?
Huh?
Can't you just seize one of those accounts?
No, I can't seize it because all I can do is freeze the account. I can't. To seize it would mean to like take possession. I can't take possession of it. I can seize it and they can't do anything with it. Well, they can't do anything with it now because they don't have a signature. I can present myself with the signature and then freeze the account.
Yeah, because if you freeze the account, that's gonna shit all over them. So.
Well, yeah, they then have a real serious problem on their hands.
And then they have to act.
Yeah, and that could mean get Greg.
Yeah.
Which I don't give a shit. Wouldn't be the first time somebody tried to do something stupid.
Well, I'd still be down to walk into one of those places.
This is supposed to be. But I can't.
The Central Bank of the Vatican has 700 with 13 sets of zeros. So, got a little bit more than the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
Now, Vietnam has it. Yemen, Yugoslavia, Zambia.
Action here.
Okay.
They're supposed to be up and running.
Are we working yet?
Oh, okay.
Yemen, Yugoslavia.
Won't work.
Was that me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we're live.
Can you hear me now?
Everybody can hear you now. There's nobody.
Nobody.
Online
We're not
with
online
us.
yet, but everybody can
No,
hear
we're
me.
online, but there's nobody on. Okay.
Let me know when you're gonna start.
Look, we. Okay. I can trim the video later on. If you want, we can just go on from here. Let's see. We have. No one watching. Okay. Stay tuned. We're going to be having a good presentation for you tonight. We're just making sure our audio, video are fully functional so we can get on with today's learning experience. Here with us is Sir Sovereign Lord Gregory L. Peck, Inspector General
Of the order.
of the Order, 33rd degree Mason. And
So you're starting already?
we can start. We don't have anybody watching yet, but we can start recording.
Before,
I
have
can
there
stream
been
it.
people watching while we were doing this? Before?
Well, you have to let people know, and that depends if they're subscribed. And if they're subscribed, they'll get a notification that you're live. So
Yeah.
it depends if the subscribers have gotten it.
Well, let's go ahead and start. You can figure out how to send it to everybody once we get started. I suspect.
Alrighty. Well, we can start recording. And
Just give me a 3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1. Wait a second. I'm gonna trim this right. Well, good evening or good morning, wherever you are. My name is Raul, or Shalev, as well known in the Hebrew world. Here with us is Reverend Sovereign Lord Gregory L. Peck, Master Mason, 33rd degree, Superior General, Inspector General of the Order. And we're going to be talking about...
Oh, we're going to be talking about a serious issue that needs to be dealt with regardless of who you think you are, what you think you believe in. There's a serious issue, and I want to make it clear that it doesn't matter if you're liberal, it doesn't matter if you're a socialist, it doesn't matter if you're conservative, it doesn't matter if you're atheist, agnostic, Christian, Jewish, Hebrew, same difference basically, and Muslim. It does not matter any of those things. If you claim to be an American or you live within the jurisdiction and or boundaries of the United States of America, you are about to have a serious problem. And I've talked about the corruption, I've talked about the deep state, and I'm going to touch on a couple of those things. But this trumps all of it, and it's about to happen, and there is absolutely nothing that the corporate government known as the United States of America can do about it. And it has to do with our economy. It's the economy, stupid, as they used to say. Let me bring this up to speed. I've talked about issues concerning the estate of the late Angelus Rebecca Divan Gracie Oñate and the Oñate Holdings, and I've told you that pretty much everything was at her disposal, and then she passed that along to me for proper protection. What I want to talk to you about tonight is of grave concern. The other problems with the child pedophilia and the corruption and the deep state and the bar and all those things, that's nothing compared to what's about to happen. The Federal Reserve issues these notes, Federal Reserve notes. I know all of you have these in your pocket. This happens to be a $1 thing. This is what we are told is U.S. currency. It's not. It's private paper printed for a private corporation, Federal Reserve, is absolutely worthless. This is a US dollar. This was printed by the Treasury. It's no longer in circulation because we've been conned into thinking this piece of paper, Federal Reserve, has got some meaning. This, you may as well use this to light your cigarette because it's about what it's worth. This is a US dollar.
As you can see on the bottom, it says
What?
silver
Certificate.
certificate.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to address that and I want you people to pay attention. This is a United States dollar printed by the Treasury for the United States of America. This is a Federal Reserve debt instrument, Federal Reserve note, printed by the Bureau of Printing and Engraving for the corporation known as the Federal Reserve, which has absolutely nothing to do with the United States of America or the United States government, corporation or otherwise. We were conned into thinking this has some value. It's a lie. But that notwithstanding, let me tell you now about what's about to happen. And this is going to matter to everyone living within the confines of the geographic location United States of America. So pay attention. The International Monetary Fund has just announced over the last couple of months that it's working on a new way of countries to reconcile their debt with each other. The US dollar, as many of you have heard, which is actually this piece of worthless crap, is supposed to be the reserve currency. It's not, but that's what it's supposed to be. That's what we're led to believe. This, which is no longer in circulation, was the US dollar, which was the reserve currency. So ever since Nixon, this has no longer been the reserve currency, a US dollar. What's considered the reserve currency is the Federal Reserve note. Okay, you got that? One of the reasons that it's the reserve currency and the rest of the world hates the fact that it's a reserve currency is because all banks and all governments of the world must hold certain amounts of US dollars as reserve currency to back their currency. And all banks around the world must comply with US banks in the banking cartel run by the US banks, i.e. Federal Reserve. If they're not, they're fined. Like France got fined some $9 million or something and because they didn't do something properly. So most governments of the world have really disliked the Federal Reserve System or the U.S. dollar being the reserve currency, and they've been crying about that for decades. But now they have a way of solving that problem, and the way they're solving the problem is by a test. Everybody knows about Bitcoin and all the cyber currency and how wonderful it is that no governments have any control over Bitcoin, and you can trade Bitcoins and you can do all that stuff without the banking system knowing you're doing it. Well, I'm here to tell you that that was a precursor, that was a test for two very important things. One, to find out if the population of the world was actually stupid enough to believe in something that literally had not only no value, but also had nothing of substance to even hold on to. Because after all, there is no currency. It's all smoke and mirrors on the internet. But everybody bought into it. Isn't that wonderful? So that gave them the green light that it works. As of a couple of months ago, the International Monetary Fund has now created its version, and it's doing the software and coming out with the software that's absolutely foolproof, can't be hacked, can't all that stuff. And it's now offering its own cyber currency called the SDR. And you can look them up. Sam David Robert, SDRs. The SDR will be a virtual currency offered to all governments, not to the general public, just to governments, so that governments might be able to trade back and forth and deal with their internal debt, government to government, without any input from the reserve currency, US dollar, Federal Reserve, etc. Now, if you're paying real close attention, what that means is, at the stroke of a key on your computer, the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve note, i.e. US dollar, will no longer be the reserve currency, because it'll all be moved to cyber currency without any oversight or control or input of the Federal Reserve or the banking system of the United States, rendering the Federal Reserve note absolutely worthless. Absolutely worthless. Not that it's worth anything anyway, but now everybody will know. The importance of this statement is that China has already bought and invested in an extremely large batch or extremely large value of these SDRs, and Russia's soon to respond. Every country in the world will respond, and they will all be able to interact and to trade back and forth without any supervision or without any input or without any knowledge of the Federal Reserve, i.e. U.S. economic system, banking system. Which also means one of the ways that the United States government gets revenue is by selling treasury bills. And of course, the foreign governments have to buy those treasury bills in U.S. dollars. Well, guess what, folks? They'll no longer need to buy treasury bills. So that means a major source of the U.S. government's assets, income, generating system is going to be debunked, is going to be destroyed, is going to be thrown on the floor, because nobody will need to buy treasury notes. Nobody will need to exchange Federal Reserve notes, i.e. U.S. currency, even though it wasn't U.S. currency in the first place, Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve will no longer have control and no longer hold a monopoly on the world economic system. So what's going to happen is, in the matter of 24 to 48 hours, the Federal Reserve note, what we consider money, will be absolutely worthless. You may need to have 5,000 U.S. Federal Reserve notes, dollars, to buy a loaf of bread. And that's on the horizon. Here's the deal. They supposedly, allegedly, by December 31st, 2018, they're going to make public these SDRs. And governments of the world that haven't already started will then be able to buy these virtual reality, this virtual currency, and exchange it amongst themselves without any input or guidance or overview of the Federal Reserve, which means the Federal Reserve will be flat on its butt in about 5 minutes, which also means the Federal Reserve note will be no longer exchangeable for anything, anywhere in the world. Which means, to all those that live within the geographic boundaries of the United States, that anything you have just went to nothing. Your house, the value of your home, zero. the value of your work, your hourly wage, your bank accounts, your retirement funds, all nothing. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to listen to me. You can think I'm the biggest bunch of hot air you've ever heard of. Some think that I'm a phony. One or two actually said, well, if he was really a spoof or a spook, I wouldn't reveal anything. My days of being a spook ended when I retired, or actually when they retired me because I became too old to be of use to them. And that's okay. I have no grudge about that. But at that point, I realized that I need to let people begin to understand how they're being manipulated, because I still took an oath to defend and protect the Constitution. So, here's the solution. There's only one possible solution. Only one. Because keep in mind, just as Bitcoin is an illusion, and Bitcoin has absolutely no value whatsoever, because there is no such thing as an actual physical Bitcoin, i.e., currency to hold or to exchange. It's all an illusion. The same thing's true of these new SDRs. They will all be an illusion based upon internet connectivity and computer exchange. So the only thing that will save the United States of America, and I'm not talking about the corporation, I'm talking about us, the people. The only thing that will save us is if somehow we can return to this, a United States dollar. In this case, this one was backed by silver. What I'm proposing is to have the reissuance, reprinting by the Treasury of the U.S. currency, U.S. dollar, and to back it 70% by gold. And I have the capability of assisting in that direction. If we can get that done, and we can get the powers to be to understand, and Trump is serious about making America great again, then it doesn't matter about these SDRs, and I hope every country in the world puts all of their resources into the SDR. Because if somebody will pay attention, and if somebody will get it up the flagpole to those that have the ability to understand and respond, within 60 days, we could have, 60 days, say from today, we could have gold-backed U.S. currency, just like this, a gold certificate, just like this, issued by the United States Treasury, backed by 70% gold, which would trump, no pun intended, which would trump any virtual International Monetary Fund, cryptic or what is it? Cryptocurrency. And we have that capability. If we do not do that, there will be no United States of America. There will be no republic. There will be no economy. Because there will be nothing to get paid. There will be nothing to pay your bills with. There will be absolutely nothing. It will destroy retirement funds. It will destroy IRAs. It will destroy 401ks. It will remove and destroy everything. Because they will no longer need the monopoly known as the United States banking system, Federal Reserve, thank you very much. And it's specifically being done because the powers that be, the globalists, have wanted to destroy the United States for decades, just didn't have the ability to do it. But when everybody bought into the bullshit Bitcoin and cyber currency that gave them the window of opportunity to completely circumnavigate any control the United States had via the reserve currency. Now, if you can't grasp that, then it probably won't matter to you because you're probably too stupid to understand what's really about to happen. Now, they're planning again to come out by December 31st, 2018 with this SDR virtual cryptocurrency. And like I said, China this past weekend just put up a huge block of resources and allegedly money to buy into this. Russia's not too far behind, nor is Korea or any of these other places. Iran. Everybody's going to get on the bandwagon because it will literally leave the United States of America penniless. The only way to stop that from happening is to turn back to a United States dollar backed by something of value. And the only thing that would be better than the only thing that has any value is gold or silver. I can assist through the estate. I can assist creating a United States dollar, backed 70% by gold. We have the gold in accounts, gold bullion in accounts that can be utilized to do this. And it will also monetize or readjust the U.S. debt because we'll be going from worthless paper to actual value. It will drop prices. It would drastically reshape the entire world economy. It would put them on the hot seat because no one else in the world can do this but us. And the reason is because no one else in the world has the ability to do this. Not only that, but once that happens, we can begin to discuss with all of the world banks, all of the central banks, by freezing the gold accounts that are in all the central banks, we can begin to get them to understand how things need to be. Don't want to get into that too much. As for comments that if I was really somebody that was knowledgeable and really somebody that had spent 30 years in intelligence and all that stuff, a spy, spook, whatever you want to call it, I wouldn't be divulging these things. I'm just telling you the truth, something that no one else seems to be able to do. I'm telling you the truth because I know what the truth is because I spent 30 years plus knowing how they do things and being part of how they do things. Now it's time to let the rest of the world, more specifically the rest of the United States, understand how they've been manipulated and lied to. And like I said, I don't care if you're liberal, I don't care if you're communist, I don't care if you're socialist, I don't care if you're conservative, I don't care if you're KKK, I don't care if you're Baptist, Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, Hebrew, I don't care. You can be an atheist, I don't care. If you live in the United States, you better care. Because this is going to affect everybody. Whatever you think you have in savings will be gone. Whatever you think you have in your retirement fund will be gone. Whatever you think you're going to get paid from your employer will be gone. No more checks from your employer because they won't have anything to pay you with. We will be reduced in a matter of days, maybe even hours, we would be reduced to less than a third world status. The only way around that, the only way to put a stop to it, is to back the currency, a new brand of currency, by gold. That's the only way to stop what's about to happen. It would take, as far as I can estimate, it would take maybe 60 days at the outset. Possibly less, but within 60 days, because the minute that $1 is printed backed by gold, that shuts down all virtual currencies. None of them will be able to function because there will be nothing of value, just like now. So I have the ability to assist in getting that done. Secondarily, I think it's important to point out that the reason that the globalists are making this move, besides the fact they came up with this virtual cryptocurrency fraud, is that no one had ever intended or expected that Mr. Trump was going to win the election. And all of the powers that be now must push, and push hard, to diminish, remove, destroy, get out of office, because he's not part of the global elite. Give you Soros, for example. Soros is investing all kinds of money because he's decided, because he pushed that one little girl in New York, socialist communist that she is, pushed that one little girl, what's her name?
I forget her first name, but it's Ocasio-Cortez.
Cortez,
she's
yeah.
Running for, I think she is going to be in Congress.
Well, yeah, she got voted. She's going into Congress. Yeah. He thinks because he funded that through the PACs and all that stuff, he put her in office. He thinks now he can buy Congress, which he probably can if nobody's paying attention, and turn the whole thing into a socialist. And that'll be okay if they can do that. But this SDR, Sam David Robert, virtual currency, cyber currency, will definitely destroy the U.S. and force us into socialism. So welcome to a brave new world. So regardless of what your political agenda is, regardless of what your religious beliefs are, regardless of whether you are of what ethnicity and you despise some other ethnicity, if you live in this country, if you work in this country, if you own property in this country, if you have anything to do in this country, regardless of state, you better pay attention. Because this is one of those points that if we fail here, there will be no coming back. Now, to show my sincerity in this, all of those that pay attention, would like you to do one thing. When I was a professor years ago in math, I had a math class. When I was a professor, first day of class, everybody'd come into the class and they'd sit down and I'd give them a pop quiz. A lot of people complained about that, but I'd give them a pop quiz. I only had one question, 2 possible answers. If the question was, which would you rather have? A penny that doubled every day for 30 days, or someone hand you $1 million cash today? You'd be surprised, very few chose the penny that doubled every day for 30 days. Those that did, I would move to the front of the class because I could teach them. Those that chose to be on the dole and get $1 million first day out, they sat in the back of the room because they were not teachable. Same thing applies here. If you do not respond to what's about to happen, you deserve to be in the back of the room. Now, here's another mathematical test. as you're sitting there listening to this, whether you believe me or not, which you can go look this up. Look up SDR, Sam David Robert. Look it up. It's all over the place. Do yourself a favor. Here's another little mathematical equation. If you picked up the phone and you called 2 people and you got them to promise to call 2 people, so on and so forth, and everybody kept their promise, one of those really bizarre things that everybody actually kept their promise. If you, whoever's listening, pick up the phone and call 2 people and tell them the story of the SDR, and you get them to promise to call 2 people, so everybody promises to just call 2 people, and everybody did that, I would ask my students how long, this was way back when, how long, if the phone system could handle that load, how long would it take to reach everyone in the United States that had a phone? And I'd get a week, a month. The answer was, back then, with all of the people that were available and all the phones and all that data, statistically, it would take 1 hour and 45 minutes for the word to get out. 1 hour and 45 minutes. Now, I understand there's probably a lot more phones because we have all these cell phones now. And virtually 380 million, 350 million, whatever the current population is, minus infant children that may not have a phone, which I'm not too sure that exists. Every adult and or teenager from the age of probably 7 up has a cell phone. If you pick up the phone and you call 2 people and you tell them to look up the SDR and to listen and to find out what it's about, and then tell them to call 2 people and get everybody to promise in less than 3 hours, everybody in the United States would know about this SDR movement by the International Monetary Fund. Now, I'm going to do everything I can to stop the International Monetary Fund from moving forward by freezing their assets. But that's not going to stop what's about to happen. And they've already said privately that they're going to unveil this December 31st. So that means by January 3rd, 2019, when everybody sobers up after they're partying for the new year, they're going to wake up to the cold, hard reality that there is nothing left. End of conversation. And if you think I'm wrong, pretend like you can do the math. If something else replaces the United States dollar, Federal Reserve note, as the reserve currency, then what do you have to rely on of value? Zero. The stock market's going to crash. Your house value is going to crash. Everything will be wiped out in less than 48 hours. And the only way to circumvent that would be to change the currency back to a US dollar, back to a certificate that's backed by gold, which can be done. And I'll make one more statement for you to tell everybody, that if the powers that be wish to get in touch with me, Trump and his administration, please do so. If you get in touch with me, I will see to it, out of the assets of the estate, that the wall is paid for, regardless of Congress, regardless of the Mexican government, regardless of anybody. I will pay for the wall. I will also tell you there's a good reason to pay for the wall. And the good reason is, across the border, just south of Texas, the Chinese government has an undisclosed military base with over 10,000 Chinese sitting there. 10,000 Chinese soldiers sitting there. That you won't find on CNN. You won't find that in MSNBC. But it's there. Why do you think they want to have open borders? So that 10,000 foreign troops can just walk across the border. Never mind all the drugs and all the murderers and all the gangbangers. But that's not the real agenda. The real agenda, folks, is that the entire world and everybody in it wants to take apart the United States. And there's a real reason for that, but I won't get into it because most of you are not bright enough to understand it. And I'm not trying to be condescending, I'm just stating a fact. I only understand it because they spent 30 years teaching me. When they finally retired me, they complained a little bit because they spent $30 million training me. It's not my fault they were stupid. And of course, when I retired, they expected me to get amnesia, like Alzheimer's or something, Unfortunately, my mind is as sharp as a tack. So, think about it. What better way to move troops across a border that's wide open with no resistance? Can you Google it? Hell no, you can't Google it. Why?
Especially not Google, because Google censors your searches. People say that all the time. Google it. You find the information whenever there's a debate about something. Don't Google it. Use DuckDuckGo. Use Yandex. Don't use those search engines. They censor you.
Yeah, and if you want to keep your stuff private and not being able to be censored and not being able to be looked at, get the hell off of these email accounts. There's only 3 email account servers that you can use. Yandex, Yandex.com, and Proton Mail, which is probably the most secure in the world. Proton Mail. That's what I use.
And it's free.
And free, and it's like quadruple encrypted. There's not a snowball. If you lose your password, you can't get back. You'll never be able to get back into your account.
It's either 128-bit or 256-bit encryption, which is one of the highest. So there's levels of security. And then you could add 2 passwords. You could add the password and then a mailbox password. So you have 2 levels of passwords. It's incredible.
Anyway, back to the reality.
Yep.
So do yourself a favor. Again, I don't care I don't care what your ethnicity, I don't care what I don't care what your sex preference, I don't care anything about who you are, what you think you are, what you believe in or don't believe in. That has absolutely nothing to do with this video. If you live in the United States and you want to continue to have food on your table, you want to continue to buy clothes for your kids and gas for your car and make your house payment, you better pay attention. Because right around the corner, they're about ready to completely devalue everything that you think you have, everything you think you own, and that's been on track since 40 years ago when Clinton was in office. They started moving in that direction way back then. Nixon was the one that actually put the first nail in the coffin when he ceased the printing of this silver certificate. When Nixon was in office and he ended the printing of the silver certificate, at that point in time, we no longer had anything of value backing up anything that we have. And now we're going to have the Federal Reserve taken down. And the Federal Reserve will not be able to do anything about it because they have no control over the IMF.
Mr. Peck, just for the people that are just joining us, can you recap on
what the SDR is?
Yeah, the SDRs, and why are we having this collapse of the economy this year?
All right. Okay, real quick, recap, I was just asked. Everyone knows about Bitcoin. Think about this now very carefully. Everyone knows about Bitcoin. and how wonderful Bitcoin was because you were able to transfer currencies and transfer value without the government knowing, without the IRS knowing, without anybody knowing, even your bank, what you were doing. Wow, it sounded like a lot of fun, sounded like a real good idea, right? But now think about this. I think Bitcoin was a test to see if they could get the population of the world, if population world was really stupid enough to do it. And they did. So now the IMF, for those of you that do not know what IMF stands for, it's the International Monetary Fund. They now have created their version of Bitcoin, and they're calling it SDR. Sam David Robert. Look it up. And this is a virtual reality cyber currency, which government to government, they'll be able to exchange government to government and work out their debts between the governments, removing the need for the Federal Reserve note, i.e. U.S. dollar, as the reserve currency. Once that happens, we will no longer have an economic position in the world economy because we will no longer be the reserve currency. We're the only ones in the world that can print money without any holding because we're the reserve currency, and all governments of the world must hold U.S. dollars as reserve currency. If we are no longer there, they don't have to hold our currency anymore, our Federal Reserve notes. That takes us out of any position. That means that this Federal Reserve note will finally be recognized for what it's really worth, which is nothing. Now imagine all of a sudden if the whole world realizes this is worth nothing and they no longer need to use it because it's no longer the reserve currency. What does that do back here at home with all these green pieces of paper stuck in your wallet or in your bank account? It means you have nothing. It may take 5,000 of these to buy a loaf of bread. That's what's happening. They are launching this system come December 31st, 2018. They're talking about going public with this. But guess what? This past weekend, China has already dumped a huge amount of money into, or a huge amount of whatever they call money, into these SDRs. Russia soon to follow, Korea soon to follow, Japan soon to follow. Every country of the world finally get out from under the Federal Reserve and the U.S. hold on the world economy. No longer the U.S. dollar, Federal Reserve note as the reserve currency. That means your house value goes in the toilet. That means your bank account goes in the toilet. That means your savings, your retirement, stock market will go to zero. Corporations won't have any money. The entire economic system of the United States will collapse. The only possible way to avoid that is to go back to printing these things. Is this the right one? These things which were called the certificates. The United States dollar.
Silver certificate.
This one was a silver certificate. Before this one, there was a gold certificate.
Right here.
I can facilitate the reprinting of U.S. dollars, not Federal Reserve notes, but U.S. dollars backed by 70% gold. Whether you believe it or not, I don't care, because it's fact. And that's the only way to avoid what's about to happen, is to take and create a U.S. currency that's backed by gold, because that will immediately shut down any cyber currency, any of this continuation. Federal Reserve, regardless, is out of business. because they will no longer have any mandate from anybody to continue passing these worthless pieces of crap. So that's the update. And for those that in the administration that care or have an interest, if they wish to discuss it with me, I'll be more than happy to negotiate the paying of the wall, and that will protect the U.S. from the 10,000 Chinese soldiers that are sitting off the border of Texas. They've been sitting there for a few years. That's why Obama and everybody and the globalists want open borders. So there's nothing to stop an invasion into the United States by military assets of another country.
And that's why they want to take guns away, too.
That's also why they're trying to ban guns and make it bad. Because they do not want us to be able to defend ourselves. And this is coming. I'm telling you this because I know it's coming. You don't believe it? Fine. One morning when you wake up and you see a Chinese flag in front of your capital, remember I told you. So Trump and the Trump administration, if you get a hold of me, which is easy enough to do because you all know where I am, I'll see to it that the wall gets paid for. And that's about all I got to say. Anybody that wants to get a hold of me, they can.
Anybody that wants to know how will you be able to pay for that or anything else, or backing up the monetary economy in the U.S., can actually go into our video library and check out the video where Mr. Pex explains where did all the gold accounts in the multiple central banks are being stored.
Right. All right. To recap that, there are people running around still to this day talking about the Marcos accounts and the Marcos gold and the Marcos wealth, which is kind of funny because Marcos and his family, when Marcos was a very young boy, they were dirt farmers in the Philippines. So where did he come up with all this wealth? Well, he married a woman by the name of Angelus Rebecca Divingrecia Oñate.
Arranged marriage.
Arranged marriage. They married in 1925. I've showed in the other video, I showed the marriage license. The Oñate estate was the custodial holder of all of the wealth there is. From the Templars, where the Templars got it was from their finding the archives of the Solomon dynasty. So this is going back to that. And if you're really paying attention, the Bible tells us that all of the gold in the world belongs to God. And as it turns out, it seems that might be true. At any rate, whether you believe all that or not, here is a document. This document lists all of, I'll fold that part over because I don't want anybody to read that part because that would be too much information. But from 1 all the way to, last page, 195 central banks. These are the gold deposits in each central bank that are owned by the estate of Oñate. And here on 158 is the Federal Reserve Board of the United States of America, and that's the account number. Yeah, you want me to put my glasses back on?
That'll help.
Well, I'm not going to tell them what the account number is. That would be inappropriate. But there's the account number. And then the second account held down here, 181, the second Federal Reserve United States of America board, and there's that account number. Each one of these account numbers more than holds enough gold to back the US dollar 10 million times over. To give you an example, take the number 500 and write 36 zeros behind it. Is that how many there are? 36?
Yeah.
36 zeros behind it.
And then there's one that's 800 and 237 zeros.
Yeah. The Swiss one, the Swiss account, which is over here on the other page. Hold on a second. This is the Swiss account. And the Swiss account is 145. The Central Bank of Switzerland. That's the account number. And it's 800 and then all of that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 rows of zero. All across that. That's all zero. That's that account. Gold account. Every central bank in the world has a gold account that's owned by the estate. And once we get the United States squared away, I will then begin to work with the other governments of the world to get their economy straightened around, to remove all of this penis envy that goes around about, which causes all the wars and all the bullshit, and get all of these countries back up to a standard of living where everybody can survive. There's no reason in this world why anybody has to struggle beyond reason to survive. And that's what Angelus wanted. And that's what my orders are from her. Her mandate to me was to see to it that the population of the world survives without all of this petty crap going on. This is the document, has all of the bank accounts. They know it, I know it. Whether you think it's real or not, I'll show you something else. I'm going to fold this over so that they can't see it per se. But I'm going to show you this for credibility. Hold on a sec. Just give me a minute. This is a court report. And look at the title of it. It says United Nations Committee 300. Can you read that?
Right there.
Okay. United Nations Committee 300 Court Report. Right? Now, the chairperson for the United Nations Committee 300 is none other than Her Majesty the Queen of England. This court report was sent to me. Isn't that interesting? Why would somebody in the United Nations International Court of Justice, Netherlands, Committee 300, send me their court report? Especially if I'm somebody that is, as some say, oh, he's a fraud, he's a fake, he's a spook. If he was really a spook, he wouldn't. The reason I'm telling everybody this is because the entire world population is about to be had. Instead of being moved from virtual slaves, we will be moved into operational slavery. Because we will be controlled every step in everything we do, because they will have a stranglehold on the alleged economy. The only way to break out of that would be open war. And they don't care how many people they kill. As a matter of fact, if you know anything about the Georgia Guidestones, they are proud to say they would love to have only 500 million people left. Do the math. If there's over 700 billion people here, and they would be content if there was only 500 million people, how many people are they willing to destroy, kill, eliminate to get to their goal of 500 million?
I think you meant 7 billion, not 700 billion.
7 billion, I'm sorry. I get the hundreds, these numbers, what the hell. But the point being, theoretically, right about now, we have about 7,500,000,000 people alive on the planet. So they're willing to eliminate 7 billion, even if it's only 6.5 billion.
2.5.
Well, they're already doing it with Agenda 21, which is population control and,
That's right.
you know, poisoning the food, the water, the air, pretty much everything that we
Yeah, we can get into that. That would be another 14 days worth of
Yeah.
a video to talk about all the ways they're controlling population. The point of this, let's not get away from the point of this. The point of this video is the SDR, the final nail in the coffin economically. They're going to move that open to the general understanding of the population December 31st, 2018, which will mean come January 3rd, when you all wake up from your hangovers for celebrating the first and second Happy New Year, there'll be nothing left. We have theoretically about 60 days to fix this problem. President Trump, your administration, you better do something pretty damn drastic and pretty damn fast if you want to make America great again. And the only way to do it and stop this from happening is to take back the currency and back it by gold, which you have the capability of doing if you will call and discuss it. We have the capability of fixing the problem. And for that, I will make sure that the wall gets built in order to protect our southern border from the 10,000 Chinese troops that are sitting in Mexico. That should pretty much give everybody a wake-up call. Of course, nobody seems to care about the drug dealers and the rapists and the gang members that come across the border anyway. How about the gang member and drug dealer that was engaged in a drug deal with a grandmother? She tried to stiff him, or he tried to stiff her, or whatever. They killed her, but the 5-year-old little girl, her granddaughter, saw it. So they decapitated a 5-year-old little girl. Of course, he's probably not going to get charged anything because where it happened was a sanctuary city and they're not going to prosecute him. Welcome to the new United States of America. If that doesn't make you sick, then you deserve abject poverty. Me? Not a problem. All I do is pull out one of my passports and I'm gone. I'd rather not do that. I'd rather save this country. I spent most of my lifetime defending this country. And for those of you that think that that doesn't mean anything, I'm trying one last time to save the United States of America. If you, the people, do not wake up, it's on you. Your fault. Bad you. That should be just about the end of it. You deserve what happens next. Either you take and pull up your pants and pretend that you're adults and stop this infighting and stick up for the country. Because after all, you're the ones that are going to suffer for what happens next. Fortunately, unfortunately, lucky or not, hell goes to a handbasket. All I got to do is walk out. One of the benefits of being in the business I was in is I have quite a few dead babies to walk out of the country with. Dead babies, for those that don't know, mean secondary and third identifications. It's part of the package. And for those that can, you'll have a good life in some other country because their economies will be growing and moving forward. The economy here won't be resurrected for decades. It will make what happened to Russia when Russian economy collapsed, it'll make that look like a Saturday afternoon picnic. Because here, nothing will have any value. Your house, your car, your employer won't be able to write you a check. There'll be no Medicare. There'll be no Medi-Cal. There'll be no Social Security. There'll be no stock market. There'll be no corporations. There'll be no bank accounts, because everything will be reduced to zero. It doesn't take rocket science. If they convert the entire world economy into a cryptocurrency called SDR, only tradable between governments, means the population will not have access, then guess what, folks? You have nothing. You doubt what I'm telling you? Look it up. It's all over the place. SDR. Sam David Robert. International Monetary Fund. Then pick up the phone and tell 2 people and have them promise you they'll tell 2 people. And sooner or later, the Trump administration will figure it out. Hopefully not too late. If you don't listen, you deserve what happens next. Thank you very much and have a wonderful evening. Over and out.